Right, so let's carry on where we stopped the previous one. So we created this new contact class. So I'm going to delete this class, delete the table. So we don't have that table or the class there at all. We'll go back and create that again when we need it. Right, so if we go back to Android Studio now, I'm going to also remove all of this coding so that we don't have that. That was just to test. So what I'm going to do now is to go a bit deeper into this application. I'm going to remove this class also. So I'm just going to delete and say, okay, we'll come back to that later. So what I want to start doing now is actually nothing about backendless, but we need to quickly create some layouts for our application. So I'm going to create a new activity, an empty activity, and I'm going to call this activity the login activity. Say finish. So in this video, we're going to set up the login part of the app, but only the look and feel. We're not going to go into the coding now, just setting up the layouts and so forth. So if you want and you're okay with layouts, you can skip this video and go to the next one where we just do the coding. Right, so for the next one, again, new activity, go to empty activity, and we're going to call this one the register activity and say finish. Now, because we normally want some sort of activity to start, main activity is set as the activity to start, but we actually want the login activity to start. And when the user is logged in successfully, we'll take him to the main activity. So let's go to the manifest quickly. And what I want you to do is to just change around login, make it main activity, and main activity, make it login, which means that login is now the main activity that will launch. Right, so that's it for the manifest. Right, before we start with the layout, I want you to go back to that website again on backendless training. So this is how you get to it again, and go to the lock picture. We're going to use this lock picture. So you can copy or just download the lock picture, and then we're going to use or copy that lock picture into our application. So I'm going to open this up in Finder. So wherever that lock picture is saved now, please copy it. Then go into Android Studio, go into your drawable folder and just paste it there and say OK. Say OK again, and under drawable you should see the lock picture there. Right, so let's start also. Before we do that, let's go into the colors XML, and the colors or the color scheme I want to use here is the following. I'm just going to paste it here, but you can go to this site, and remember the site is www.materialpalette.com, and then from there you can choose your color schemes. So I've just chosen an orange type of color scheme here. This is my primary, that's my primary dark, this is the accent color, and that will be the light color. Right, so now the next part is a bit more complicated. So we're going to go into the login activity first, so the XML for the login activity. And what I want you to do is to just open up the text tab here. And we're going to replace this with something else now. So I want you to go to that backendless training website again. And you're going to go to progress bar to be used in the application. So quickly open up that. I'm going to close down the lock and setting up backendless. And for this also, I'm just going to say open it up in Google Docs. Right, so what I want you to do is to open up this document then called progress bar, and you'll see in the layout we'll need to do this, and then in the activity we're going to use this method. Now, where did I get this? So if you go to Android Studio and you're going to create a new activity and you look at the login activity, this is something that the Google developers now created, or the Android developers created as part of the login activity. So I stole the coding from the login activity there on how they do the progress bar. So I'm going to teach this to you today. So go back to that document, and what you're going to do is to copy this whole layout there. I'm going to explain this now in coding. So you copy that layout, go to Android Studio, and you're going to replace your whole layout with this new layout. Right, so you'll see that it refers to the context as the main activity. So we're just going to make this one login, and then go down and remove this so that you know this is where we start changing or start doing our layout. It's still the linear layout that's vertical, but it's in here. Now in the login class, let's just copy and paste these, and then I'm going to explain it. So go back to this document again, and at the top in your activity, you're going to copy those lines. Let's go back to the activity. I'm going to have those lines there, Alt-Enter on the view, and on the text view also Alt-Enter. Right, let's go back to the document again. These three inside of your onCreate with the find view by IDs to link to them. And then the last part is a method that we'll need at the bottom. And I'm going to copy this whole method there, copy it, and then paste it as the bottom part. Now there's a lot of imports that you need to do here, so just Alt-Enter on all of them. On build also Alt-Enter. Just undo that part. On build, Alt-Enter, import class. Also in your animator, listener adapter, Alt-Enter, import the class. There's also Alt-Enter, import the class, and then you should have not have any other problems here. Right, so let's just quickly go through this that we just copied and pasted. So the big idea here is that on every layout where we're going to connect to the internet, we need to show a progress bar. So in the layout itself, we start with a vertical linear layout. And on that vertical linear layout, we start with a progress bar. But you can see that the visibility for the progress bar is gone, which means on the layout, you won't see it now. Then next, or just after that, we're going to have a text view that will say something like loading, please wait, or getting the data online, please wait, or whatever. And then this one is also set to gone. But if you go to the linear layout, this linear layout will be the only thing that shows right from the start. So in this linear layout, we will be creating our own layout. So now what the idea is here, as soon as I want to go into the background and get data from backendless or save something to backendless, I will need to show the progress bar and the text view and hide everything that's in this linear layout with this ID. As soon as I'm done, I want to show this linear layout again. So then I hide the progress bar again and the text view, and I show the login form again. So if you look at your coding quickly there, you will see that this is the progress bar, progress view. Login form is the linear layout where we're going to design our layout, and then TV load is the text view that will show loading or whatever. So this method works then as follows. You can see there's the show progress method. And for the show progress method, you pass in a Boolean value into this variable called show. So let's say we pass in true there. So which means that we want to start showing the progress. So if we want to start showing the progress, we pass in true. That true will go then into three things that we need to test here. So you'll see that this if statement there is just testing if our SDK is higher than honeycomb, we will do this. If it's honeycomb or lower, we will just set the visibilities. Okay, so in this case, we will go to mLogin form view, which is the form in this case. So it's this linear layout. So we're testing this linear layout. If that linear layout, we're going to go and say set the visibility on that linear layout depending on this show variable that's passed in. So in this case, if it's true, we're going to set the view to gone. If it's false, we're going to set the view to visible. So obviously, if we want to start showing the progress, we want to get this login form out of the way. So if it's true, then it will be gone. If it's false, it will be visible. Now, if you go down again, this is progress view. So this is actually your progress bar. So on the progress bar, you set the visibility also depending on this show variable. If it's true, to start showing the progress, then the view will be visible, different than that one. So view will be visible on the progress bar if you want to show it. So if it's true, it's be visible. If it's false, it's going to be gone. And this is also just the animation connected to it. Then on TV load, which is the text view, set the visibility depending on the show variable. If the show variable is true, the view will be visible. Otherwise, it will be gone. So you'll see that's basically only three things we're setting here. We're setting the visibility. So if you look again at this, if I want to show the progress bar, these two must be visible, and this one must not be visible. But if the progress bar should stop showing, which means we're going to pass in the false value there, then the progress bar should be gone, text view should be gone, and linear layout should show. So if you look at these methods again, there's the login form view, that's your layout. Set the visibility if it's true to gone, otherwise it will show. For the progress bar, if it's true, show it. If it's false, do not show it. Same for the text view. If it's true, show it. If it's false, do not show it. And that's basically what this method does. And this is just the set visibilities without the animations if you're working with honeycomb or lower. Right, so just to quickly see this in action, I'm just going to go here and say show progress and set it to true. And then we'll see if we start running this now, we will start seeing the progress bar right from the start. And remember that we have set our login activity as the starting activity, which means as soon as it starts running, we set the progress to true, so you will see the progress bar with the text view. Right, so there we can see the progress bar with the text view that says loading, please wait. If I set then or remove this show progress, then it will still be the same as you had on your layout, which means it will be gone and you will not see any progress bar or text view there, just a blank layout. So here you can see without the show progress or even setting show progress to false will give you just this empty layout. So what we need to do then is to go to that empty layout and start designing our layout here. Right, so let's do the same thing for the register activity. So go to your login activity. We'll take everything just the same way as it is, copy it, go into the register activity, and replace that layout also. And just make the context there for the register activity to be register. Now go into login again. We'll need this part again. Go to register, paste it there. Let's go to login again, take that part, copy it, go to register, paste it there. Go to login again, take this whole method, copy it, go to register, and use the method there as well. Right, so it's a lot easier to copy from one activity to another than from that Word document. Right, so now both of these looks exactly the same. The login activity as well as the register activity. So in both of them, we can just start building in this linear layout that's vertical. That's called login form. Right, let's go to the design tab there. And now we can start building our layout. So we will build our layout inside of this login form. So what I'm going to do first is just add an image view for this login activity. So I'm going to drag in an image view there. I'm going to use this lock and say OK. Now let's go and set the width there as 200 and the height there also as 200. Maybe too small. Let's make it 220 by 220. Okay, this could work. Now let's just move this to the middle of the screen. So set the layout gravity to center horizontal, and let's just move it a bit from the top. So I'm going to have a top margin there of 30. Right, so there's the lock in the middle of the, or not in the middle, but in the middle horizontally, but vertically at the top. Right, and now we can start, maybe just make this a bit better or a bit bigger, 250 by 250. Right, so let's go into the text part again, and for this whole layout, I'm going to set a background property there, and I'm going to use the primary light color. So if I go back to design, this is my primary light color as the background. Now, normally in a login screen, you've got two edit text there that will basically ask the user for his email and his password. So let's do that one quickly. So go to text. For the email, let's drag in an email edit text there. So just drag it to your component tree, make sure it's inside of the login form, but just after your image view there. And then we're going to also drag in a password edit text just underneath that edit text. I'm going to click on both of them. I'm going to give both of them a top margin of 10, end margin of 30, and a start margin of 30. Now for this one, the top one, for the email, let's give it a bit more. Let's say 30 there, so just to move it a bit down. Now on this first one, let's have the hint there. Let's set the hint to please enter email address. And for this one, we will have the hint, please enter password. Right, on both of these, I'm going to center them, so it's going to be gravity, center horizontal. And then I'm going to add a button now. So let's add a button at the bottom, buttons. But let's say we want to have two buttons here. So we want to have a login and a register button. So for that, I would rather do the layout, a linear layout that's horizontal. Let's drag in that linear layout there. After those two, make sure that the height wraps the content. And then inside of that, I will add my 2 buttons. So I'm going to add 1 button and another button into that layout. Now for this linear layout, let's just set the margin on the left, on the end 30, on the start 30, so it's aligned with your edit text. Now let's add a top margin there of, let's say 20, just to move it down a bit. Okay, then on these 2 buttons, let's click on the first button and let's have the text on that one be login and the text on this one be register. Now for this edit text, let's call this one ET mail. Let's call this one ET password. Let's call that button BTN login. And let's call this button BTN register. Alright, and then one last thing I'm going to add here is a text view right at the bottom. So make sure that that linear layout is closed, and then make sure it's in the login form, but after this linear layout. Right, so there's the text view. I'm going to set the gravity for this text view to center horizontal. Let's just move it a bit from the top. So I'm going to give it a layout margin of top 10 maybe. And then the text on it, let's say forgot password. Click here to reset your password. Right, so basically this is the login screen then. We will change the buttons now to look a bit better. And maybe this one also we can set it as bold. And let's set the color there as the primary color. Bold could probably be too much. So let's take the bold away there. Forgot password, click here to reset your password. Okay, so now on the 2 buttons, to just quickly do the 2 buttons there, let's go into the drawable folder and we're going to say new drawable resource file. And let's call this one buttons. Say OK. And we change the selector there to a shape. And then in the settings part here, we're going to set the shape as a rectangle. Right, and then for this shape, I'm just going to use a solid color there. So I'm going to say solid Android color, and let's use the solid color as primary there, and then just close it off. And then I'm going to also use corners there, and I'm going to use the radius as, let's try 10 dp there. Okay, so this is all I need for my buttons to show a bit better. A solid color and then some corners to give it a rounding. So let's go back to the login, click on your button, go to the background property, and let's set that background property to that buttons that we just created. And you'll see there we've got a nicely rounded button. Right, for this button, the same thing. Let's go to background and also set it to buttons. Right, so then on the right hand side of this button, so let's say a right margin there, or maybe a end margin of, let's make it 5. For this one, a start margin of 5. Right, let's go to this button, go down to its color, text color property. Let's have a hash 123456, which is a white. And there also a hash 123456Fs, which is also a white. Right, so now it looks a bit better. We've got the lock, we've got email address with password, we've got 2 buttons. On this text view, let's just go and set this text color to the primary dark. Yeah, that will read a bit easier. Okay, so then on this text view, also make sure that you set it to clickable, otherwise it won't act as a button. Right, so at the top, that text view, let's call it TV reset. Right, so this is then my login screen. It looks like this. Maybe not the most popular or modern type, but it's got everything we need to create this login feature. So we're going to log in or register a user. So obviously the first time the user gets to the screen, it will register. After registering, he can enter his email address and password and log in. And if he forgot his password, he can click there to reset the password. Now let's just go to the login activity and set up these. So that's ET mail, ET password, BTN login, BTN registered, and TV reset. So let's go to login quickly. Underneath that, I will have an edit text. So we've got two, we've got ET mail, and we have ET password. So also after that, we have buttons. So I'm going to use button. We've got BTN login, and we have BTN register. Alt enter for your import. And then we have one text view also, and we call that one TV reset. Now let's just quickly set them up. So let's set up ET mail. Let's set up ET password. Let's set up BTN login. BTN, other one is register. And then we've got a text view also, which we call TV reset. Right, so all of them is set up now with the find view by ID, and then we'll need these links to the three buttons there to have on-click listeners also. So I'm going to say BTN login, set the on-click listener, new on-click listener, and that button is set up. Then we're going to say BTN, next one is the register button, set the on-click listener, new on-click listener, and that one is set up. And then also for that TV reset, we're going to set the on-click listener, new on-click listener, and all three buttons are set up. So all the components for the login activity is then set up. All right, so let's go and do the register activity quickly. So for the register activity, just go to the XML. Remember, this one is still empty. Let's just set the background property there also as the light color, the primary light color. And now we can start designing this one. So normally on the register activity, we'll ask the user for his email address, his password, and then he must retype his password. So you can add some other information there also for every user. So what I'm going to do is to just get a plain text one first, which will just ask what is your name. And then from there on, we will ask what is the email address, what is the password, and then we're going to ask him to retype his password. So it's 4 edit text. The first one just a normal plain text one, second one an email one, third and fourth one, or the third and fourth ones, or both of them will be the password edit text. So the password edit text will do what? It will just add that little dots there when the user starts typing. So that's nice about the password edit text. Right, so let's go to these 4 now. I'm going to click on or select all 4 of them. Let's add a margin there on the top of 10, on the end 30, on the start 30, and then maybe for the top one we can add a top margin of 30. Now let's just remove the text there for this one. Go to the hint property now. And the hint here will be please enter your name, and then escape before you enter there. Enter your name. The next hint will be please enter your email address. The next hint there will be please enter your password. And then the last one there will be please re-enter your password. Right, so there's all the edit text. Let's just select all of them again. Go to the gravity property. Make sure it is centered horizontally. And now we can drag in another button there just to register this person. So I'm going to drag in the button there at the bottom. There's the button. Let's set the same type of margins for it. Top margin, let's make it 15. And then we'll have a start margin of 30. And we'll have an end margin of 30 as well. Right, now on this button, let's set the background property for this button also to that buttons, which will give it this round corners and so forth. Click on the button again, go down, set the text color to #123456, and then we can just change the text there on the button, and this one will be called register. Right, and this is our register activity. So let's just set them up quickly. This one will be called, let's call it ET name. This email address will be ET mail. Password will be ET password. And this one we can call ET retype. And then for the button, let's call this one BTN register as well. Right, so let's go and set them up inside of the register activity now. So again, we're going to have a few edit text there. So it's going to be et name, it's going to be et mail, it's going to be et password, and it's going to be et retype. So 4 edit texts. Then we have one button there. So let's just set up the button quickly, and that one will be btn register. Okay. Then let's set them up. So we have an edit text called name. We will have an edit text called et mail. We will have an edit text called et password. And we'll have an edit text called et retype. Right, so all of them set up. Then the button, btn, and we're going to call that one btn register. Let's just set up the register button there. Set the on-click listener, new on-click listener, and then everything for this activity is then also set. This is the register activity then, this is the login activity, and the layouts for these two activities are now done. So let's just get a quick overview of what's going to happen next. So what we're going to do next is then to work on this activity. The first one we'll work on is the register activity, and the register activity that looks like this. We're going to get the name, the email address, the password, check if the passwords match. When the guy clicks on register, we register a new user online. And then when that new user is registered online, the user can come, enter his email address and password, click on login, which will log him into the app. We will also look at how to keep a user logged in so that he doesn't need to log in the whole time, and then also how to reset the password. So we're not going to go to a new activity when the user clicks on click here to reset your password. So if he clicks here, we will show a small little dialog box that pops up with a edit text where the user can type his email address to get a reset password link.